Thank you all for joining. Shanna, do you want to give a quick roll call?
Sure. Okay, so Mr. Stevens, you're here. Mr. Abernathy, you're here.
I'm here.
I don't see Mr. Baylor yet. I don't see Mr. Dixon yet. Miss Edwards, you're here. Mr. Hugh, I believe you're here. Yes, sir. I don't see Mr. Husley yet. I do see Mr. Johnson. You're here, correct? Mr. Lansom, you're here.
Yes.
Miss Lewis, I see you. Mr. Phillips will not be with us tonight. He let me know ahead of time. Miss Reeve is here. Miss Saunders is here. And I do not see Mr. Wright here yet. Is that correct? Okay, and as far as town staff, we have Miss Susan Hubana-Willard. We have Miss Dana Struginski. We have Town Manager Hazen Blodgett, and then we have me, myself, and I.
Miss Shana Robinson.
Okay.
So Shanna, pardon me, but I wasn't counting as you were calling out the names. Do we have a quorum?
Blackley's here too.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Blackley, I see you. Yes,
I
sir,
do.
quorum. We have 9 here total.
Fantastic.
And 10, I see Mr. Dixon is now here.
That's very good. Okay. So if you, I'm going to try to join through my PC as well. If you could just give me a brief moment. Sorry. Okay, well, that's coming up. Thank you all for joining. We have another packed agenda tonight. We are shifting from our time of learning about what CATS has basically designed and the various route options that we have in front of us to a decision-making mode, a discussion decision-making mode. And then towards the end of the call, we're also going to have a little time just for the committee members. We're going to ask town staff, with the exception of Shana, for the sake of minutes, we're going to ask the town staff to log off, and we're going to just address a few logistics of the committee. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we get into that period. So with that, Dana, I think a couple of things that I wanted to call to everybody's attention is that we received several emails. We received some general feedback about the Silver Line Task Force and what's going on. And so we wanted to talk about where we are and our objective going forward. And we also wanted to try to start making some decisions about what's going on. So Dana sent out a survey with a bunch of questions related to just kind of getting a pulse of the committee or pulse of the task force, if you will, so that we can understand where people think that they need more information and where we think we are going to be able to focus our attention, our for lack of a better word, kind of our heavy issues, our heavy discussions. And it seems like, and Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my read of the survey results, there were 9 people that participated in the survey. And if you haven't already participated, I'd strongly encourage you to go out there and go through the survey. It takes just a few minutes. And the results of the survey showed me that I think our Matthews Street Novant alignment is the one we have the most questions about.
And do you want me to, I have some of the highlights on the the PowerPoint that I always have. Do you want me to pull that up for you, or do you want you
That'd be
and
great.
Jason to
Yeah,
talk
I
and then just
appreciate
tell me?
that. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Would you shoot? Okay, I will do this, but I don't know if Hazen wanted to say something first.
Bill, do you, Bill, is it okay if I jump in real quick, or would you rather have me wait?
Go for it. So, yeah, sorry, Susan prompted me to introduce the members of the public, and I didn't do that. So thank you, Hazen. Hazen Blodgett, if you don't already know, Hazen is the town manager. He is speaking tonight on behalf of the mayor. So thank you very much for joining, Hazen. And I'm looking for the rest of the general public. Susan.
Yeah, Bill, I think just welcome them. We do have several members of the public listening in tonight.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate you joining and your interest in the Silverline Task Force. Hazen, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks. So first of all, thank you guys for your time and efforts. I know it's literally drinking from a fire hose as far as absorbing a lot of information. The mayor sends his regards. He would normally be here, but he's on a CRTPO meeting, which stands for Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and I know they're making some important decisions tonight, so he's asked me just to fill in. I think really my job is just to make sure everybody's comfortable with the mission and the purpose, so that you guys can kind of hopefully focus your discussions and whatever, kind of help this group come to this consensus or making some decisions. But really, the intention is to look at the three alignments and see, are they okay? Are there tweaks? I'm sure there's plus and minuses to all of them, just because there's such a complicated decision matrix. And really to kind of talk those through as a group. And we have gone through in years past a pretty significant vetting charrette process, and the board, I don't know, I think it's 2016, had a locally preferred alternative, locally preferred alignment. And then this has kind of been expanded to see if there's better ways to do this. I just want to remind the group that, this is intended to be a light rail with a number of stops, really from destination to destination. It's not commuter rail that we think of in other parts of the country. But we want to make sure there's whatever. Matthews is part of this line. We've been part of it. Really, I think the first bond, did it pass in 1999? I can't remember the date. Yeah. Okay, but again, just want to thank you guys, and if you can kind of gear your focus to those three alternatives, and then what needs to be improved or what questions need to be arised. I think that's probably the best way to help the board, and happy to answer questions or thoughts you guys may have.
Thank you, Hazen. Appreciate that. I did have a conversation, was it earlier this week or last week, Hazen? Anyway, I had a conversation with the mayor and with Hazen and Dana, and we kind of gave a quick status of where we are with the committee. I think all signs are pointing to good. We do have some things that we want to address and make sure that we all have a common understanding of the things that we think we can do. And this is a collaborative thing. This is not my decision. It's not town staff's decision. This is not the mayor's decision. This is our decision as a committee. And we want to try to do the best that we very well can to try to bring this committee to some manner of a consensus, or at least some very collaborative ideas about the best decisions that could be made for the Silver Line. That being said, I think the status of where we are, we went through, again, I'm repeating what I said earlier, but we went through a period of information gathering and now we're into a phase where we can start sharing ideas, sharing some concerns, and sharing some preferences of what we think will work best for the Silver Line. We need to hear from everybody. This is really important. If you feel like this committee is, this format of the Zoom call is not what you would prefer, that's, I understand this is the best we can do at the moment, but we have some other options on the table. And I think Dana mentioned some of those in the survey. We also, where are we with the maps? Have they been sent out, Dana?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we printed them all out. We got them on Monday from CATS. That was the first time we got the maps from them. And we spent, or Darren from the planning department spent all day on Tuesday plotting out 15, well, it was two maps, 15 of them each. And we either mailed them or we have them at town hall. 2 people opted just to have it digitally. So Shana, what do we got? Like about 6 more people who haven't asked for maps. So if you want to email me or Shana, Susan, if you want maps, you're more than welcome just to stop in at town hall. We also will happily mail them to you. We are trying to plot out the big ones. So the plotter printed out pretty large maps for you all to take home with you, but the actual maps are about 7 feet long. So I think tomorrow, I don't know if Darren had time today to do that, but tomorrow he's going to go over to Public Works because I think the planning department's plotter is broken. So he's going to go and plot out maps from there. So we'll have the huge ones at town hall. So if anyone wants to come in, there's always a planner during the day there to walk you through it. So by all means, that's something that it will be at your disposal as well. So yes, we have lots of maps.
That's awesome. So thank you, Dana. So again, to reiterate, the maps are at town hall. You can go and see them there. The maps, Dana has asked for addresses. These are physical street addresses, of course. And so if you've emailed Dana your physical street address, expect probably in the next few days. Is that fair?
As soon as we get those addresses, we can get those out. Yeah.
Some hard copies of the maps, and I'm looking forward to that. I saw them again on the Zoom call with the mayor. He held up these maps. They're spectacular. A lot better than the wallpaper that I have in my office. So that'll be interesting. I think they'll add a real boost to our task force to have a visual where we can nitpick things, we can look at it and dissect things, and hopefully provide some really helpful feedback. But again, just to reiterate, what we're looking for is contributions from each of you. I've read emails from many of you, and another follow-up to this call will be we want to make sure that we all know how to get in touch with each other. So I'll have some more feedback on that later. But Dana, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we can start talking about, I think, the Matthew Street Station. Is that right?
So I'm going to pull up.
Can we approve the minutes from last meeting?
Oh, thank you, Shana.
Let me get to the agenda here. Let me help you all. Give me just 2 seconds and let me just pull this up. And
All right, so we are already over time. 5 minutes for the welcome and approval of the minutes.
can everyone see my screen?
I can see your screen, Dana.
Okay, great.
Jim Johnson, can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can. I'm just trying to eat real quick.
Thank you. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the August 5th task force meeting. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second it for you, Bill.
Is that Chris Hoff?
That's me. Yes.
Hi, thanks, Chris. All in favor? Shane, I'll let you take over from here.
Okay. So, okay, Mr. Stevens, you motioned to approve. Mr. Abernathy?
Approve.
Mr. Blackley?
Approve.
Mr. Dixon?
All right, approved. I thumbed up.
Oh, thank you. Miss Edwards?
Approve.
Thank you. Chris, you seconded. Mr. Johnson,
Approved.
Mr. Lansom,
Approve.
Miss Lewis,
Approve.
Miss Reeve. Miss Reeve? Oh, did I lose you? Oh, there you are. I see you. Okay.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Saunders?
Approved.
Thank you so much. All right, the minutes are approved as submitted. Thank you all. Y'all
Thank
can
you.
go now.
Okay.
All right, Jan, back to you.
Yeah, great. And so I'm going to just roll through just where we are right now. So we are on August 19th. We're on the 5th meeting. So we've had a lot of input from Andy Mock in the past couple meetings. I know we've had some good question and answers, but we're going to have a lot more of that deep discussion today and for the future of the meetings. And so we are going to I'm going to quickly go over that survey. So Bill wanted to survey everyone and make sure that you all are feeling comfortable with the material. Please, if you haven't filled out the survey, like Bill said, please take a minute and fill it out, especially the written part. I'm only going to show you the sort of the highlights. There's a lot of written comments, and as soon as maybe by tomorrow at noon, if everyone can fill out that survey, I will, at the close of business tomorrow, send it out to everyone so everyone can read through it. So we have 7 questions. These will be quick. So I think, the basic of the question was, number one was the locally preferred alternative that was adopted in 2016. Did you all understand the location of it? And most folks felt, agreed that they understood that. We got to the one at the Novant campus and, oops, sorry, technology. Hold on a second, let me move that back. So this one here, I don't know if anyone can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse or no?
A little bit.
Okay. Well, so do you feel the task force has enough information for that second, the tweaks in that, oh wait, I'm so sorry. I'm on the wrong screen. I apologize. Let's go back. Here we go. Here's the number one, locally preferred alternative. And then here's, do you understand CATS's LPA that has been changed a bit? So that was sort of the variations in the Novant campus. And so again, most folks agreed they understood it. If you're the person who doesn't understand those alignments, please reach out to us. We're happy to explain it. We want to make sure everyone is crystal clear. Number 3, you understand the location of CATS alignment that runs down West Matthew Street. And this is the one that Bill was speaking about, that, he thinks that we should probably go over that again, because it's not as, I don't think everyone is as comfortable with this one. And we didn't spend as much time on this one. Number 4 was just asking, basically, do you feel like you have enough information to make a recommendation by the November 2020 meeting? And if we are sort of all over the place, some people agree, but I'm not surprised by this, because obviously we're only sort of halfway through the process, but we wanted to get a pulse of everyone. And then ultimately we had question 5 and 7 were both open-ended questions. If you didn't agree with question 4, what information would be beneficial? And then question number 7 was, if you added more dates on the calendar, what do you want to discuss? We don't want to just throw more dates on the calendar. We want to make sure that we're making good use of your time. So we got some good feedback from both of these questions. And then number 6 is, would you want to participate in a Blue Line light rail tour? So Andy Mock has been working with his CEO to try to make this happen. They have capacity. They're willing to do it. And it looks like 5 people on this in this question said yes to that, which is great. And so again, we will probably by the end of this week, I think Shayna is going to be in charge of sort of gathering up the names of folks who want to participate, and then us helping with CATS doing that coordination so that we can set up some sort of tour on the Blue Line. We tried to do
And
that virtually.
I'm sorry, Dana, Wyatt has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see anyone.
That's okay.
Hey,
That's
Dana,
why I do
sorry.
this.
Thanks. I think one thing that might be helpful is just sort of understanding the social distancing, because I do think that they are willing to help keep proximity limited.
So thank you, Wyatt. Dana, let me take that and you could add on to it. Wyatt, I appreciate that. So first off, we need to make sure that when we do any sort of collaborative work, whether it's a walkthrough or a ride through or what have you, that we don't do it with more than a quorum, or quorum, or I should say less than a quorum. So right now, a quorum of the task force is 7. So we need to make sure that we do this in groups of less than 7. Did I get that right, Shana?
I'm sorry, you can do it with a quorum. We would just need to post it as a public meeting.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification.
It would just be posted.
So beyond that, just kind of the same way that you behave going to the grocery store or going to a restaurant nowadays, that social distancing guideline would take effect.
And Lou also has his hand up.
Yeah, for those who don't want to go on with your tour, there are a large number of YouTube videos available that show both the outside and inside operation of the Blue Line. Just Google Cat's Blue Line or Link's Blue Line and look for the YouTube videos.
Thanks, Lou.
And so we will, staff will help facilitate that, the trip to the Blue Line, if that is, if folks want to actually participate. So like I said, CATS is happy to do it, and we are happy to help facilitate it if folks want to do that tour. I've done it before, and it's very interesting. It's a very enlightening experience. So I'm going to roll back up to our agenda. So we covered the survey, and just if you all, again, by the end of close or by noon tomorrow, if you all could fill out the survey, and then by the close of business tomorrow or early Friday, I will send out the full survey for everyone to review it. I can't hear you, Phil, if you're speaking.
Apologize. Any questions or comments about the survey? Okay. So again, our next section is to discuss the various alignments. We've allocated 45 minutes for this.
And I'm going to start. Yeah, I'm going to start at. And so I'm going to share my. I'm sharing my screen. I'm just going to get out of this screen and go into the map. And if you all have your maps at the house, feel free to follow along on paper. Let me get to the actual map.
It's like Chris Huff has his hand raised.
Thank you, Susan. I just had a question on one of Hazen's comments initially about the path of having kind of downtown stops or making it kind of the not a commuter line, but making Matthews a destination. And I guess not that I'm disagreeing. I just didn't know where that guidance was coming from. Is that a board decision, or is that based off of feedback from Matthews residents in the past?
Is Hazen still on the phone or on the call?
No, he's not.
Okay, well, so I'll try and tackle this, Chris. Thank you. That's a good question. I know you've asked it before, and we probably should have chased this back down. So in 2016, I was, there for the public involvement on the LPA, and it was just something that was always talked about during the prior public engagement process. I don't recall anyone specific saying, we have to have it downtown, or it was just something that was generally spoken about as having a downtown station as we were going through that LPA process. But staff will make a note to track down the source of that if possible and get that out to the group.
And because I just think from a decision-making standpoint, that would help with the alignments, just to know the feedback and where it comes from, and that might help, at least for me, drive decision-making.
Because can everyone see my map? It should be focused in on the CSX lines, and you'll see North Trade Street where it says Zone 10, Zone 11. I think Lou has a question.
Is there any way to magnify that?
Oh, is it not full screen, Susan?
It's
No, it is not.
Oh,
It's
okay, let me
very
try it again.
tiny.
Okay, hold on. It's very tiny. That is unfortunate. Let's see. Any bigger?
Not yet.
Okay.
There might be a delay.
There we go.
Oh.
You had it.
Is that bigger?
Wait for it. Wait
No.
for it. Try it again, Dana. It flashed
Okay.
big for a second and then went small again.
Okay, it's big on my screen. Hold on.
Are you getting this straight off the Google Drive?
No, it should be on my PDF. Okay, hold on. I apologize, guys. Technology. Okay, I'm going to download it again. Here, let's try this. I'm going to download it again and see if I can do it a different way. So here's the download. I'm going to get out of here.
So while that's going on, Dana, can you describe to us what you're pulling up?
I am going to pull up the Matthews Mint Hill, the West Matthews section, so that we can take a look at that, and hopefully we will get a bigger view on it. So I'm going to zoom in, let it populate.
Dana, do you have more than one screen?
I do not. No, unfortunately.
Okay. I thought maybe we might be looking at the wrong screen because I'm looking at your browser.
Okay. That should not be the screen we're looking at. No, I'm going to
Susan,
stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to go back in.
if you can help me keep track of the time.
I apologize, guys. Yeah,
It's all right. So the setup, I know we went over time on the very first introductions. I apologize for that. But as we go through this, if somebody could provide a time check, especially if we're like nearing the end of a particular discussion or nearing the top of the hour or something like that, I appreciate it.
I will do that, Bill, for sure. And it looks like Wyatt also has a question. That's much better, Dana. We might still need to zoom in, but that's
you still need to zoom in?
Susan, sorry, and I'll take like 2 seconds, but I think Chris had a good question about the commuter, and having been involved in other parts of the light rail, one of the primary differences is just the frequency of stations and also the mode. The red line, if I'm not mistaken, that was proposed along 77 North was actually more of a diesel type train with much longer distances between the stops, and that's my 2 cents, but at least is maybe a little bit of context.
I believe there are 27 stops in a 26-mile route that's ending in Matthews to Belmont.
How's that, everyone? Okay, we're good? Okay, so hopefully you
just a second, Dana. Lou, you still have your hand up. Is there something else?
No.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Dana.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this by the numbers as opposed to trying to use my mouse because I'm not sure if you all can see my mouse. So you'll see on your side of the screen that says E10-3. So on, I guess you're looking at it is on the side of the screen. That's going to be on, I assume that's the east side, on the other side of Matthews Township Parkway. And you'll see that labeled as CSX Railroad, and you'll see the bright green line that crosses it. And that bright green line is the locally preferred alternative. And that's the line that turns up and then basically goes by the quarry and then turns right on Sam Knoll. But we're going to focus on the section that is, you'll see there's E10-2, which is just on the sort of north side of the CSX lines. And both E10-3, E10-2, both go into West Matthews Street. And so I just want you to take a look at those alignments. And the one on CSX right-of-way goes through, if you look at it, it goes down, it crosses Matthews Township Parkway, I believe underneath, Susan, correct? It would share that space with CSX and then go underneath the Matthews Township Parkway. And it would, you see the orange here, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, it goes, it will go under and then come back up. And this is Bo Halsley's property, I believe, which is Matthews Building Supplies. And it goes through into West Matthews Street here. There is also an alignment that does not go on CSX. It comes off of Monroe Road, that E10-2 alignment, and that will go under Matthews Station Parkway, or I'm sorry, Matthews Township Parkway, and it will go underneath here, and then it will come through again through Matthews Building Supply and onto West Matthews Street. So I see a couple hands up, so hopefully I didn't confuse many people, but that is the section that we didn't really dive into much. So I just want you to see it, and you can ask as many questions as you like.
Bill?
So, sure. So the part labeled E10-3A, that if we're looking at the CSX railroad option, is going down. It dips. So you're saying it dips under Matthews Township Parkway? Is that right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then it comes out, right, okay, at the R equals 6, or R equals 900, R equals 700.
Correct. And
Okay.
so this makes the assumption, this CSX alignment makes the assumption that it is going down CSX right-of-way further towards the Galleria. So like further up on the alignment that it's using CSX Railroad. If it's not using CSX Railroad, then it takes it goes from Monroe and then crosses over Industrial. And like I said, either goes the locally preferred alternative to Sam Knoll, or it makes a sort of a harder right and goes underneath the bridge.
So
Underneath the Matthews Township Parkway. And I think
So quick clarification. Just a reminder to everybody that the more bold green line is what is currently the locally preferred alternative, right?
correct. Yes.
And all of those other routes on the map, they're options that we are being asked to consider. And again, more on some of those details later. But thank you for that. It was confusing to me exactly where it dips underground as opposed to staying above ground. So again, one follow-up question: the route that does not follow CSX Railway, is it slated to go? Sorry, before that, Dana, is this slated to go under the railway or over the railway?
So is this? I don't know. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, but I'm thinking about upstream from that a little bit more, where it says cell tower and.
This would be bridged.
That'll be a bridge.
Right, Susan? This section is going to be bridged.
That's correct.
Oh, Susan's got her little arrows going on. Thank you, Susan.
Maybe a little bit bigger than yours, yeah.
That's awesome.
Lou had his hand raised for a while as well.
Yeah, what
And it
Bill is
looks-
asking about is the red marks where the E10-2 goes over on a bridge according to the red marks. The red marks are a bridge. I think that absolutely is a tunnel in my opinion, but I could be wrong. it really should be blue, which is a tunnel, I think.
We should get clarification on that, Lou. That's a great point.
I have the answer if you want.
Oh, awesome.
So what they're indicating is a cut. So they're gonna cut out half the bridge and lay the track, put the bridge back, take out the other half of the bridge, lay the track, and put the bridge back. So it's not really a tunnel, but yes, it's gonna go like under, is kind of what they were saying. So Lou, you're probably correct, but they would like kind of cut the road in half to put it in and install a bridge afterwards. Does that make sense?
It didn't entirely make sense to me. I mean, it's either a tunnel or
So
a bridge.
the end result is going to be a bridge. It's not going to be underground like a tunnel would be. So the end result is that 51 will be a bridge right where I have the red arrow.
So is the traffic going to be going over the bridge, or is the train going to be going over the bridge?
Good question. Vehicle traffic
Okay.
will be going over.
So the train is under the traffic for the for vehicles will be going over.
Yes.
Okay.
In other words, DOT will build a bridge where there is none now, and there will be open space underneath for the rail. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think you said, yeah, so the CATS will build the bridge. That's correct. And the train will be underneath.
And I would like to mention that CATS has been in discussion with both Halsley, like they have been discussing that. I know that Andy has had some sort of discussions with him. I don't know to what extent, but I know that they did reach out to them as a property owner.
So we kind of started digging straight down into the weeds of a alternate route as opposed to the LPA. I want to pause real quick. So if we start back where it says cell tower and then goes across the CSX railroad, that is the current LPA. And then there's a couple of alternatives that we could take. We've already started digging deep into the weeds. Does anybody have any questions about where this map starts on the far left side, going over the railroad tracks as the current LPA?
Bill, just to pause, Kerry had his hand up previously and I missed it.
Sorry,
I
yep.
apologize. So if you want to get back to him now, or okay, go ahead, Kerry.
Thank you. Just a couple general questions. Again, in the agenda, we didn't really discuss the Monroe Road CSX section yet, but assuming we go back to that, are there 4 stations in this model for Matthews? Monroe Road, Galleria, if you will, downtown, the ENT, and CPCC. Are those the 4 stations where we would have in any model that we're currently looking at?
Correct.
Okay. And the other question, I guess, is can we assume for the moment that we can talk about or review CSX without the politics or concerns that it isn't viable? Should we spend energy on it? I tended to get a feeling pretty strongly from Andy when he was speaking to us that I don't know what the probabilities are, but I would hate to see us spend an awful lot of energy in designing something that looks like for me, CSX path is the least path of resistance. It doesn't cut up the town. It doesn't eliminate any of the stations that we might still need or want. But I mean, it would eliminate a lot of these loops, et cetera, But I just want to make sure I understand your perspective of what the politics are like and what the probabilities might be for us to continue to explore that.
So the best way I can answer that question is currently CATS, the only section on CSX right of way is going to be on the other side of Matthews Township Parkway. So, and I'll zoom out. Let me see, hold on a second. Let me zoom out from my map. And
Well, and again, I'm not discussing the locally preferred alternative. I'm looking at the options we're considering, which might shift from Monroe Road, for example, to CSX. If we move the station on the other side of Galleria, Dana, wouldn't we be on track at that point then as well?
Yeah, and I think that, yes, and so I think we should evaluate. I mean, I think we need to discuss those, because if they've made it to this part of, if CATS has put it on the map to review, then I feel like we should at least take a look at it if we have strong feelings. They have had successful relationships with CATS, with CSX in the past. It's just difficult. It's an uphill battle. But I like you to your point. I think it's a worthy conversation. I don't think we should just nix it. We should, take a look at it. And as a group, if we don't feel it's a strong option, that's, one thing, but I think it's still worth looking at.
Okay, and I think the earlier question that one of the other panel members asked was this idea that one of the town's goal is to have a downtown station as a destination. If absent that, we would still need to go through town to traverse through to the next station, which would be ENT, right? I mean, whether we stop in town or not is not necessarily critical to what the path might be, is my point. We have to get from point A to point B if we're going to pass through town. Adding a station somewhere in that area to facilitate destination pedestrians and so forth is a good thing, unless we're going to be disruptive as all get out in trying to accomplish that, either because we lack the parking, or worse, we're going to cut through traffic under tunnels, over bridges, and the like. Fair statement? Okay, I just want to make sure that we're assuming four stations in this model, regardless of the path, and that it's okay for us when we begin to get into more detailed dialogue to really look at CSX as an avenue for any of the alternatives. Fair? That's fine with you.
Yeah. And,
okay.
And I know we're already getting in the weeds because you guys, have lots of questions. I guess my point of doing this first is because the survey indicated that you all weren't as clear about this particular section. I just wanted to go over it. And so now that we see, and I don't know, I apologize, there's a hand up. Lou and Carrie, do you guys still have questions, or is there?
Yes, I have one, two actually. Did I understand Dana to say that the cell tower street stainless area of CSX was all that is being discussed, or if we are also discussing going through Matthews Building Supply? Maybe I misheard that. I heard the cell tower mentioned.
I apologize. I don't understand the question. Susan, do you understand the question?
No, you lost. So the cell towers over on Industrial Drive, I think Bill was just using that as a point of reference for the LPA. And so the locally preferred alternative goes past the cell tower over CSX. And then there's one option that then makes it hook eastward and go under 51. So what was your question, Lou?
Okay, the second question was, if we are just interested in getting through if it turned out that the necessity was just getting through Matthews, then why would we not think about going Independence Point Boulevard? Totally. That was the original plan. The station would be located at Sam Newell Road, where the current parking ride area is.
That was when the alignment was on Independence Boulevard?
It's not on Independence Boulevard. At Sardis Road North, it becomes Independence Point Parkway, along Independence Point Parkway. It uses and this is in the weeds, but it uses the Crayfield Road on the Charlotte side. Excuse me, I mispronounced that. Crayfield Road on the Charlotte side to get to Independence Point Parkway, the new Independence Point Parkway.
Yeah, Lou, I don't remember an alignment along Independence Parkway, so that might have preceded me, and I apologize. I don't have good information on that.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
that would be from 2016.
Lou, I appreciate your comment. I think it's something that we can, once we get the maps and broaden the discussion a little bit. So, I guess here's my take on it overall is that when I checked in with the mayor and with Hazen and Dana last week, the message was nothing is off the table. If there is a better route, it is entirely more preferable. We can revisit that discussion. We do know that the Independence Boulevard alignment of the Silver Line was considered, and I think it was Jake Kemp, Dana, Susan, or Shannon that sent out the information about how the decision was made for basically taking Independence Boulevard off the table. And it had to do primarily with the fact that instead of light rail as the additional rapid transit option, they put in rapid bus transit as the option along Independence Boulevard or within Independence Boulevard. So nothing's off the table, Lou. We can go back there. The Independence Point Parkway, Independence Boulevard alignment, if it truly makes sense, if it's something that CATS is willing to hear, well, even if it's not, this is something that as a task force that we can discuss, we can go down that route. But, to be fair to the agenda tonight, I think at the moment we're trying to narrow in on what we think from our previous information gathering sessions is the trouble points.
So I'm just going to quickly finish this discussion on how the rail CSX line just goes over, traverses from one side to the other side of Matthews Township Parkway, and then you can see how it angles into West Matthews Street. And that's something that it will go down West Matthews Street. The station would potentially be at the corner of North Trade Street and have it on the south side of this. I believe it's on the south side of the street right now. And then it would wrap around into where the other alignment, so the LPA picks up right where, is that McLeod Street? So it wraps around and goes into McLeod Street. So you have the LPA alignment on the north side by Devant. You have this new additional piece of alignment that's a little closer into Andrew Caroline here, where and then you have basically the two options: one CSX running, one that is running closer to Team Road that goes over and under 51. So that's sort of downtown. What I'd like to do is switch and so Bill, Chairman, if you'd like me to, I wanted to switch the maps to Galleria, just because I just want to have that discussion, because it's not as complex. And I want to get, a pulse of where everyone is on that particular alignment. Is that okay? Oh, can't hear you, Bill.
Absolutely okay. So I'm looking at this map and looking it over and over again. One suggestion going forward, and I don't know if this is something that we can work out with CATS or not, but if we could provide one alignment at a time on subsequent slides or subsequent map presentations, I think that would really help, in my head anyway, understand what I'm looking at. But anyway, so yes, let's go back to the Galleria, unless there's further discussion that somebody wants to have here.
Okay. Can I just interject this? Yeah, so we've only heard from a couple people. This was the area that most, based on the survey results, most people felt uncomfortable with. So I would I would like people to thumbs up. Yeah, we're ready to move on. I'd like to see everybody kind of either ask your question or say, yeah, let's move on, because we really want to make sure everybody is comfortable with them, specifically as we're looking at downtown and Matthew Street. What other questions do people have? It looks like David has his hand up, and then Jennifer.
Yes. I was wondering where this new alignment that showed up on Matthew Street came from in our last meeting. I hadn't seen that before. And I thought the LPA is what we were supposed to talk about. Now we're jumping back to Galleria. We've never talked about much of any of it, but while we're on the Matthew Street where we seem to have had confusion, I believe the confusion is because we haven't seen or heard much about it. But to me, it looks like we're going to have two rail lines within one block of each other, bisecting the only through street we have in town and the only really viable bypass street would be Matthew Street. And if we had a blockage or a problem or anything, then at either the station or at Trade Street where CSX is, we're just asking for trouble. And I can't see the logic of having two railroads a block apart in a 3-block long road. So where did this come from, this new E10 2?
Well,
E10 7, I guess called.
So it's not new to this discussion. This has been on the alignment maps since we started back in May. So that initial presentation that Andy gave to the board of commissioners had this on there. There's been so much information that we've been trying to share with y'all. We just haven't literally gotten to it. So that's why we're sharing with you tonight, where it didn't come out of nowhere. It's been on the map since
But who initiated? Is that CATS initiating that alternate route after we already gave them an LPA?
Okay, so Susan, I don't know if you want to jump in here,
Yes.
but yeah, go ahead.
I do. So when we were doing the downtown mobility study, this was something that the design team or the urban designers, this was an idea that they came up with. And so we shared that with CATS because we didn't know, is this viable? Is this not viable? We don't know. We're not light rail designers. So we shared that information with Charlotte Area Transit, and they've been evaluating it, much like they came up with the idea to put it down the CSX corridor, and they're evaluating that. And so that's, if you're wondering where this West Matthew Street came from, it came out of the charrette process from the downtown mobility study.
Well, that mobility study is not terribly old. So if they can come up with those studies pretty quickly, then I think we should also ask CATS to come up with a better explanation of why more CSX or more of Independence Point Parkway in 2020 does or does not make much sense. If they can come up with that so quickly from just that mobility study, I question the logic of having two rail lines, but I question a lot of logic of the mobility study. So that makes sense that that's where it came from.
Okay, thank
So
you.
David, let me make sure I understand your statement. And okay, so first of all, asking for some additional understanding of the alignment, if you will, along CSX is really what we're after, right, David?
Well, I think Kerry had some very valuable points that he brought up earlier about questioning why we can't use more CSX line just because it's a pain to CATS. Who cares? What's a pain to Matthews? I thought we were here to take the best approach for Matthews.
No doubt. So the question is, then, so we have an LPA on the table from 2016. Why wasn't the CSX option more considered in 2016? Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Well, I just think Kerry's point was that we're going to destroy a whole lot of business doings along Monroe Road when we possibly could use a CSX line and not have the disruption and the tear down. And I just want to hear from CATS more of a reason than just that it's hard to work with CSX.
Oh, gotcha. So it's
it's Galleria to Matthews that we keep jumping around, but Kerry had some good points that I think we ought to ask Katz.
Yep. So when Andy was on the line, he was explaining the CSX option. He kept on saying there's a lot of unknowns. That's going to be difficult. And that's where we kind of want to get under his skin a little bit. Is that where you are?
I don't see it as getting under skin. I just try to look for what's the best route for Matthews and for even Monroe Road, which is the coming in of Matthews. If we chop up Monroe Road and chop up Matthews Street, it's irresponsible of this committee to approve something like that without looking at some alternatives that are less disruptive.
Okay. Okay. Understand your point. Thank you.
Next was Jennifer.
Yeah. Maybe am I muted?
You're good.
Gotcha.
Okay. If we're to the two questions just proposed, especially about Matthew Street, where would the station be if we're going in on Matthew Street?
It would be at the corner of North Trade Street and it would be East Matthews at that point. So North Trade, do you see what the orange is?
So where
right by Christopher's.
Christopher's.
Okay. Is that enough? Is there parking there for enough people?
That would be a walk-up station.
Okay.
In other words, they park all over downtown and walk up and leave.
Okay. And while I'm asking questions, I saw another email that had an option that came in just off of the CSX by the cell tower and runs parallel with Team Road.
Okay.
We haven't looked at that one yet, but it was in another email. So I'm just wondering.
Right, that was Lou sent out an email with a sketch that he had drawn. So we have forwarded that sketch to Andy Mack with CATS. So that's not something that the CATS teams has evaluated, but they will look at it and let us know if that's viable.
Well,
I had asked about that one before, just because it's coming close to Matthews without coming down through downtown to Mr. Blackley's just point that he just made. It does seem like I know we want to get people in downtown and have people in the downtown area get to other places, but it seems like it's a small town and we're chopping up a lot of stuff.
Thanks, Jennifer. Any other questions, Jennifer, before we move to the next person?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Lynn was next.
my hand is up. I have a question about the next meeting, about this meeting and the next meeting. The next meeting is sort of characterized as a move-on meeting. It's really not structured as a discuss in detail meeting. So the question is this the last meeting that we are going to have a chance to discuss in detail the various options?
No, we have a lot more meetings on our calendar, and if we need to add more, I think that's up to the chair's discretion. So I know this is going to take a while. This isn't easy, this discussion. So I would not, if we feel as a task force that you all need more meetings, if you all feel that you need more meetings, then by all means we'll make sure that happens.
Okay, Lynn was next.
I was wondering with the walk-up station, sorry, I have an issue with my sound with this computer. The walk-up station, would that, like, how much space does that take? Do they just kind of have a space, something that they buy tickets and then they get on, or would they actually have to take property?
Do you want me to take that, Dana?
Yeah, she went in and out, so I'm not sure if I got the whole question.
Lynn, that's a really good question. So when we looked in detail, if we zoom in really, really, really tight, we can see how close this gets to that building on the corner. And it does get pretty close to where, where the stairs are up on that side, on the Matthew Street side on that building. And there's like a little plaza area. So if you think about those stairs, and then there's a little plaza with a sidewalk and some chairs, and then the station would just blend right from there. And then there would be the ticket vending machines there. CATS is, going through the pros and cons if it's if you access it from the side or if everyone goes to a center platform, how that would work, that's not decided. But it would kind of be like, it would be very seamless. Will they have to take property? I don't really know the answer to that right now, but when you look at this, it looks like it would just kind of go right up to where the public sidewalk is there next to Christopher's, and the station would blend in. Does that help answer your question? Any other questions, Lynn? Lou, I had you after Lynn. Was there another question that you had, Lou, or did you ask your question?
I asked it. Thank you.
Okay. And Carrie, I had you after Lou, but your hand is down now. Are you?
Yeah, I'm okay for the moment. I think we want to go back to the other section, and then I can ask some general questions at that time. So I'm fine right now, Susan. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Wyatt, I had you next.
It was just a statement, but I think the things that David and Lynn brought up, I think, are really valid concerns, and Carrie, and that's why I think one of the things that would be so helpful for any committee members that can do it is to really consider doing the live Blue Line tour, because I think not only just being able to see it, but being able to ask some of the questions that are being posed is part of this. So talk to me about the disruption. Talk to me about what happened to these businesses here, because those are some critical pieces of information that perhaps gives you a great point of reference to look at a real example. And I just think it may offer a lot more clarity as we're getting into the details.
I saw Natasha's hand go up.
Sorry, guys, my daughter might be really loud in the background here in a minute, but I think everyone's making some really wonderful points. And, I actually like the Matthews Street alignment, but I understand totally where other people are coming from with the disruption and that consideration. And I think the only way to make that alignment work is to be considerate and it needs to be a very special situation for that alignment that goes through our town. And the way it's built and designed has to be of particular importance for that. We don't want to lose businesses. We want to develop it. We don't want to, trisect our area, I guess you might want to say, with the CSX alignment just a block away. But I think if it's done right and it's done well, it might be a great opportunity for the town. I've never really been a fan of the Novant alignment, just because I felt like it just didn't bring people into the downtown Matthews area. But I get where people are coming from both ways. And sorry, it's more of a comment than a question, so I apologize. But just sort of where I've been thinking about this and why I'd like that.
Natasha, thank you for that. One thing that occurs to me, the way that you were describing it, is that perhaps our committee, we need to come up with our guiding principles. If we're going to make a decision to go with one alignment over another, that we need to have a reason for making that decision, not just because it looks better on a map. And the guiding principles that you're talking about is it brings people into downtown. The guiding principle that David and Wyatt were talking about is disruption to Matthews. Another one might be acquisition of property or disruption to businesses. So that's some food for thought, that as we go through these discussions, circulate emails, have conversations between ourselves, that we can start talking about why would we make one decision over another, and what would be the guiding principle that would drive us towards choosing one alignment over another. So thanks for that, Natasha. Really appreciate it.
Bill, in that pause in your breath, I want to do what you asked of me, which is a time check. It is 8:04 p.m.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to take down this map and pull up the other. I apologize, it's not already up on my screen. Oh, I apologize, my family photo right there. I'm going to go to...
And Dana, we are on a slight delay too from your screen.
Okay, that's fine. Carrie has his hand up. Do you want to ask a question while I'm doing this?
Exactly. This was just a general question. Is there a set of goals that the town commissioners set when they did the initial locally preferred alternative? What were the goals that we had for why we would bring Silver Line through Matthews and what we were hoping to accomplish? Were they stated anywhere? Were they reviewed with the community? Is there anything that said, for example, we want downtown to be a destination, so that's one of our goals. We want transit-oriented development in the entertainment district, that's one of our goals. Is there a document like that or any conversation that's been sort of discussed along the big picture of why would we want this? It might help drive us or at least help us review that. And if not, Bill, perhaps that's something we establish as a committee and then evaluate against it. Just a thought.
I like that. Thanks, Wyatt.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yep,
Danny,
and just,
can you? Sorry, can we answer that question from Wyatt? Whether or not we know whether there's a document or not?
from Carrie.
From Carrie, sorry.
Carrie, I do not know of any document. I've texted Jay Camp, poor guy, and asked him if he knows of any document with the goals. I think that's a really great point, and staff can research that and get that to you in our regular correspondence.
Thank you,
thank
Carrie.
you for bringing that up. And Jana had her hand raised next, and then Lou.
Hi, I think this maybe piggybacks on what a lot of people have said, but as far as our goals, one thing that Hazen said at the beginning of the meeting that I suppose has me concerned, if not a little confused, is that our goal is not to make this a transit. In other words, what I heard him say is that we're not trying to move people from Matthews uptown to get them to work. We're trying to bring people into Matthews, a lot of little stops and destinations. I'm not sure I understand why that is one of our goals. I think it's great to get people to the recreation center. Sorry, I just forgot what it's called.
Sportsplex.
And of course, to see, do we have, it is in my mind, an area.
Shana, your voice is breaking up terribly. Does anybody else have a hard time hearing Shana? Sorry.
Jana.
Yeah. Jana,
Okay.
we can't hear you.
Jenna. Sorry, Jenna.
Hear me now? No.
Keep talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, try that. So
Okay.
we lost you at bringing people to the Sportsplex.
Oh, okay. And sorry, I did get a message that my internet was unstable for a second, so I'll hope that doesn't happen again. But I guess I understand that we want to have a way for people to get to the Sportsplex and to CPCC. I'm not sure I understand if we really have a big need to bring people into downtown Matthews. And I'm also not sure I understand why we're not focusing on taking people who live in Matthews to Charlotte on a straight, direct, fast route to get to work. So I'm having trouble thinking about any of these alignments because all of a sudden the purpose that I thought it was for seems to not be that. Is that purpose set in stone?
We can bring Hazen back to explain it further, but I assume he wanted to make that statement so that you understood what he and the board was thinking. But we can clarify that to make you more comfortable, Jana.
Well, and Susan, maybe you have some insight into this, but why?
Oh, no. We've lost you again, Jana. Jana, we've lost you again.
Why do we?
Didn't hear the question, Jana. I'm sorry. And now you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? I don't know.
There we go.
You may want to turn off your video. That may help with your audio.
Okay.
I'm actually having the same problem too right now, so that's why my video is off.
Okay. Sorry, that's a good suggestion. I guess is there what is the reason that we want to bring people into downtown Matthews as opposed to giving them a transit quick way to get uptown? Charlotte.
Yeah, so Jana, I love these questions. I think this will get rolled into what Carrie has asked for. But the way I interpreted what Hazen said is it's twofold. I think we all understand getting uptown without getting in your car. But there are a lot of people who want to come to downtown Matthews, and they've got to get in their car and drive in and clog our streets. And I think for a long time, the town has seen itself as a destination. So when you think of Sportsplex as a destination, CPCC as a destination, the town board sees the town as a destination. Now, I think Carrie's point is this documented somewhere and not just staff saying it. I think that's a better point, that we need to find the documentation on how that was established. And so staff will definitely look into that, if that helps a little bit answer your question.
And I will say that Jay texted us back that we do have vision statements that are adopted by the board. And the number one vision statement is a well-planned multimodal transportation system. And we can send those out, those vision statements. I don't know if there's 10 of them. I forget how many there are, but that was recently adopted by the board. It was that large visioning process that happened. It happened about 2 years ago, because I think it happened right before I got to the town. So that may be, for those folks who are wondering where these values are coming from, I think that's probably a decent place to start to look. So I will happily, like Susan said, we'll roll this up in a package and we'll send you out some information.
And before we get to Lou's question, Public Works Director CJ O'Neill, who has worked for the town for 85 years, would like to say something.
Hey, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. And I appreciate all the questions. And I'm sorry, I meant to just listen in tonight. The questions, though, are good ones. And this is based off memory, so we are going to still go back and look through the records to make sure. But from what I remember, the reason for this rail line was set very early on. We had charrettes in, I think, like 2014, and then public input. CATS held several public input sessions in the Matthews area where we had people come in and put stickers on what they wanted. Do they prefer quick commute times, or do they prefer lots of destinations? Do they want, what do they want for stations? Do they want to go along Independence? Do they want to have downtown stations? And all of that went through public input quite a few years ago, I guess 2014, 2015. And that's where we started with the alignments, that there was very, very strong public sentiment pushing for the destination rail rather than commuter rail. That was one of the things. And the other was to have a downtown station in or around downtown. So that all came through public input. That's what my memory is telling me. So I hope that helps some.
Thank you, CJ.
Oh, and I'm sorry, can you hear me still?
Yes.
Yeah, one other thing. And so when that happened, that's when DOT started looking at Independence Boulevard for an expressway for moving the people to downtown as an option, since we were looking at the light rail for being a destination rail.
Thanks, CJ. Another thought before we switch over to Lou?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Lou, you've been patient. Go ahead.
While we're looking for documents, I believe that the commissioners in approximately early 2016, and I'm not sure if it's a commission meeting or a meeting with CATS, but I believe that the idea of having a station or even passing through Trade Street and East and West Matthews Street was decided against doing that. So while we're looking for documents, I believe that might have happened at a commission meeting, might have happened at meeting with Kat.
And I want to be the time check for you all. So it is 8:15. We only touched on our agenda. We haven't gotten through nearly as much as I had hoped, but that's okay. We have a lot of great discussion. I'm going to let the chairman decide what we want to do next. If we want to continue this discussion on Galleria, if you all want to go to that open forum, Bill, that you had talked about earlier with me, you just let me know how you want to proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's 8:15. I think it is time to think about how we're going to close up this agenda. Can you go back to the screen share of the agenda?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a ton of things to talk about, but this groundwork is really important, and I think we're hitting on that. You know, we could talk about CSX or Monroe Road, or we could talk about Matthews Street versus Novant, and so on and so on. And really, the important thing here is, why are we making these decisions, and what is the history behind it? And so, I'm not at all concerned, at least at this point, about pausing our progress on this specific agenda in favor of coming back to kind of getting our feet on the ground for what are we doing and why are we doing it. So, thanks. I'm still seeing a map, Dana.
Oh, are you really? I'm so sorry. It's showing up on my screen. Let me do this. Look at this. I'm going to share it again and see if that works. My apologies. Okay, what about that?
No, I see Dana. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I see the agenda. Thank you. All right, so the next conversation that on the agenda, aside from Galleria, Family Dollar, CPCC, Central Area, Matthews, talking about our next meeting and then our meetings beyond that. Just want to remind everybody, our next meeting is September 2nd. I will not be on that call. Then we have the further discussion about the Silver Line segments in Matthews as a public meeting. Now, again, I'm just going to reiterate, we do have the option of adding meetings onto the committee, adding more detail. I'm not quite sure what's happening. Somebody must have come off mute and we're getting a lot of interference. Is that my line?
Oh, hang on, it might be me.
Nope. Thank you, Susan. So the last section or last agenda item is an open forum for task force members. And for this, I wanted to have the town staff ask them to log off. This is an open meeting, and so I can't require you to log off, but if you'd be gracious enough to give us some time as a task force to talk, I appreciate it.
And so, Bill, just so you know that my face will not be shown, but Shayna has to stay on to take minutes. So Shayna will be here. She's got to close out the meeting, and you can't have the call without her facilitating. So Susan and I are happy to, drop down and let you guys do what you want to do, and just keep in mind that this is a public meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Dana. All right, and thank you so much for your help, and we'll talk to you again next week or a couple of weeks. Okay, everybody. So here we have.
Sorry, Mr. Stevens, I'm going to make you a co-host, so if you need to share a screen or something, just FYI.
Okay, thanks. I'm not going to share my screen. I think
Okay.
This is more of a verbal conversation.
No worries.
Shannon, thanks for staying on the line and taking notes for us. So this is kind of an open forum. So a couple of things. So as I mentioned earlier in the call, I did have a meeting with the mayor and with Hazen and Dana actually last Friday. I'm on vacation now, so I apologize. I have vacation brain. Days are kind of melding into one. But anyway, the point is that we had a status meeting. We just kind of gave a a quick status of where we are and where we want to be. And some of the things that came up are the feedback that we've heard, that the mayor has heard in particular, from some of the task force members. Some of the feedback related to the information is coming at a lightning pace. We're not sure that we're going to be able to make a decision for the town with the level of detail that we're getting. There was some concern that maybe the town staff had a predefined agenda that they were steering us toward a particular direction. And lastly, most importantly, really, is that we want to make sure that everybody on the committee has a voice, that they have the input that they want to have. And it's really important to me and to the outcome of this committee that we don't have a town staff decision, that we don't have a CATS decision. We have a Matthews decision based on the task force. And anyway, I wanted to open this up as a time for us to compare some notes and compare some thoughts about concerns about the committee. Anything that you have in your mind that you wanted to discuss as a group amongst ourselves, without town staff, and just understand that we're a group that has been tasked to make a good decision for Matthews. I think a lot of the discussion tonight is bordering on how do we make a decision? Why would we make the one decision over another? But let me just leave it open to hear from you all. And again, we really want to hear from everybody. What are your thoughts on how we're doing as a task force? And what are your thoughts on where we're going? Go ahead, Wyatt.
Thanks. And I apologize. I feel like I run my mouth too much, everybody. So apologies for that. No, I think you really hit the nail on the head in terms of, Carrie, to just, what are the goals? Why are we doing this? And really where it comes down to me is there are a couple of decision points, I think. One, we talk about the route, but to me, a more important decision is recommending generally where we think the stations need to be. And it seems like the biggest one is, the proximity to downtown. On one side, there's a concern that it becomes a de facto commuter out location where there's not sufficient parking and people are just hogging parking, which, is absolutely a possibility, but, policing parking regs is also something that's in control. But sort of what the pros and cons are of the downtown location. But I think it's so natural with so many questions to really hardcore get into the details of this stuff and stuff that's just really so hard to answer at this point. And as I sit there and think about providing a recommendation, whatever it might be, there probably will be some differing opinions throughout the committee. And I think as we're going through this, talking about the pros and the cons and or the questions or concerns we have about particular routes and particular locations, I think is going to be really critical, because those are the things that, whether we know an intersection is going to have, how it's going to disrupt the intersection, how it's going to disrupt the road, that's absolutely going to be part of it. I mean, I would drive up and down North Tryon Street a lot while the Blue Line construction was going on, and sometimes it was an absolute disaster, and sometimes it was not a problem at all. And so I think you're doing a good job of herding a lot of opinions, Bill. But I fear sometimes that we get very detailed questions that are really almost impossible to answer. And I mean, they shouldn't be asked, but they're almost impossible to answer at this point.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Bill, is there any reason we can't meet in person sometime, just socially distanced, just like you go to the grocery store? I think this is a many $1 million project. It's a once in 100-year event for Matthews, and trying to meet with the technology drops that we're having tonight just doesn't make much sense.
David, I couldn't agree more. And honestly, that came up on the call with the mayor, and there are town staff that are just not comfortable meeting in person. I would be very comfortable meeting individually or as small groups with each of you. Obviously, when talking about small groups, I'm less than a quorum. So here's a couple of things. First of all, we need to make sure that whatever small gathering that we have, we don't breach that threshold of 7 for the quorum. Shanna gave us the input earlier that means that we just, if we meet as groups of less than 7 and we're under the threshold, over 7 means that we need to make a public open meeting announcement, which in my opinion, if we're meeting in person at this point in the pandemic, I don't want to do. So a lot of details there, David, but I think the point is that I think it's a great idea. Whether we we meet over a coffee or a beer or town hall, staring at the maps or somewhere else, I'm all for it. I don't know that we want to do a public meeting as that, David, but I think you're right that there's too much going on here. And at the point where we can sit down and actually make some progress, understanding the maps, understanding each other, understanding the personalities. A couple of ideas that I had, obviously the ride along, the walkthrough, whatever you want to call it, I think is a great idea. I would hope that we could do that as a smaller group as opposed to a bigger group, and which would basically mean that I would do it probably 2 or 3 times. But let's kind of think along those lines, David. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Hey, Bill, it's Wyatt. I didn't really say anything. I was talking about the rail thing. Apparently there'd been there'd been a discussion about that, but I was lucky enough to have actually an in-person lunch with the CAT CEO, John Lewis, about a week and a half ago. And it really was to talk about, he's charged with such a big task here for the entire CAT system. And just had an opportunity to sit down and share a little bit about sort of the sportsplex area planning, the ENT district planning, and what they've offered to do is actually the tour would actually be a private car or some car that is dedicated to us. And so we wouldn't be in general public. We'd be able to be masked. We'd be able to control the number of people that are there. So it's that one of the things about the way the question was worded. It's going to be set in such a way where it can be just us. So
nice.
I wanted to share that because I don't know that was made clear. And that is a great opportunity, whether it's public or private, I think, to talk about all the daggone things that, I know everybody is scratching their head over.
Thank you. Thank you, Wyatt. Jennifer.
Yeah, I was just wondering, would it be possible to walk around Matthews in some of these spots that we're talking about, putting this line? Is that a
good idea?
Yep. That came up as well in the conversation with the mayor. Something that I actually brought up saying, we need to do that, no doubt. And again, at this point in time, I think the best option would be to do it with a less than a quorum.
Okay.
But yeah, we could meet at the Novant campus. We could meet at Mojo's, right, Jim? And we could meet just about anywhere and go through a lot of the scenarios. Thanks, Jennifer. Kerry.
Bill, just a couple of comments. Number one, the sessions to date for me feel like they're engineering oriented, and I'm not an engineer. We spent an awful lot of time talking about what they're going to dig and where they're going to build and why they're going to do engineering feats to get from point A to point D. And the reason for my question tonight was more like, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. What is it we want to accomplish? And is a straight line from A to D a better line? Why are we being as disruptive? What were the goals? And think of it more from, I'll call it the practical or the business or the the residency perspective, which is, do I need a station? What are my uses? I believe that a destination is a good thing if we want to pay the price for it. I think that transit oriented development in areas like ENT. So there can be reasons why you would want something in some areas and not in others. But I feel like we've spent the predominant amount of our time talking about the engineering aspects, the costs, the difficulties of going under and over bridges and around lines, and not talking about why we are doing this and whether we should in the way that we're doing it. Jana's point this evening as well, I believe we should have a commuter destination at the end of both ends of town so we can at least get some traffic relief. I believe if we're going to do a destination in town, we got a price to pay. We're going to either have a bridge, concrete, we're going to take out business. Do we want to pay that price? And those are business and I don't want to say political, but those are discussions that aren't about cats. How will you make this happen? And I think like most of what I've been absorbing is these are the three avenues that CATS is engineering to get the line through Matthews. And I'd like us to back up a little bit and say, okay, are we going to take 4 stations? Are we going to run it through here? Because quite honestly, when I looked at all of these maps, I would have drawn a started CSX line up about our boundary and I'd have ended down below ENT. I'd have never come off of CSX. It comes right through town. It goes to the other areas. It would have been the least disruptive route. Now, I don't know if we can do it. I'm not an engineer, but I'm looking at it more from that green sheet. Okay, I don't know why all the curves and everything was engineered the way it was, but are those really the things that we want to have done? That's all.
Thanks, Kerry. I couldn't agree more. Those ideas of the guiding principles, we're circling back to that over and over and over again, and I think we're overdue. I think you're right, Kerry. That was one of the main concerns I had taking back to the mayor is that we have had technical discussions. We haven't really had a lot of discussions about what is the pulse of the task force, and then you get back to the heart of that is why. So well said. Any other thoughts? Jim?
To kind of echo what Kerry's saying, I felt like when I started this committee that we were going to look at a higher level and talk about the goals, the pros and cons of different high-level runs through town. And I thought we would be talking about multiple options. And what I felt like we were given is this is a vetted, engineered line. You guys get to pick it. And I felt like we're being told you can have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or a bologna sandwich, but that's your choice. And I felt like we should have had more options, right? So that's kind of where my pushback would be. It's like, and I can tell just from listening to Andy, he thinks Matthew Street is a lot cheaper, quicker way to build this. But I'm not sure it's the best for the town. So we have to look, like David said, we have to look at what's best for our town, not really what's best for CSX or what's best for CATS or whomever.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
For what it's worth, and I know enough to be dangerous about the history, but one of the reasons that the Silver Line jumped the Red Line, which was the commuter, the planned commuter line that went up to Mooresville, was that it was a railroad right away, and that was Norfolk Southern. It wasn't CSX, but it's been explained to me that Duke Power and railroads have more land rights, it seems to be, than almost anybody. So that may be some backstory about that route and conversation. So,
well, at some point, I think you're right. At some point, the town board, the CATS, they're all going to have to basically take our information, take our recommendations, and say, does this mean that the light rail is going to happen coming through Matthews or not? And are they going to take our recommendations, or are they going to go back to the LPA? Granted, I don't mean to say anything other than we're getting a high level of visibility, we're getting a high level of attention. But yeah, you're right, Wyatt. If we come up with a solution that is not a viable solution, maybe somebody's going to say, well, we don't do that until, some distant year in the future. But that's okay. As a group, I think we have an opportunity to make good decisions based on principles and based on a study. And it's not an engineering study, to Carrie's point and to Jim's point, and it's not necessarily our preferences. It's a set of discussions and a set of recommendations that we make as a committee based on the information that we have and the direction that we have. So one quick clarification, as we were meeting earlier, I got a text from CJ who had been listening in, and CJ had made the point that the LPA and the quote unquote tweaks to the LPA are basically where we are. That's what we're deciding on. Having a completely radically different route is, we could propose that, but it's not going to go anywhere. It would be the equivalent of a hung jury taking that back to the town. So, where are we? What do we have left? A couple of things. First off, the town staff and CATS, they've gone toe-to-toe on some of these hard decisions. They've come toe-to-toe on some of these alternatives. They don't have a predefined path that they want us to go. Other than the various lines on the map that we're seeing, nobody is saying one is preferred over another or one is remarkably better than another. So we have an open book and open slate. In terms of going back to the Independence Point Parkway option, probably not. That's probably not something that's going to get any real voice or any real visibility after our task force. When I looked at the maps, honestly, I was looking at these things. I thought during our conversations with Andy and Dana early on, I was saying, well, why in the world do we not consider a path that would basically go along the edge of the quarry? It seemed like that's a bunch of open space. It would be less disruptive to businesses in our town. I don't personally have a good handle on what the quarry means to Matthews, but the point is that I saw what I thought was a radically better path, and I talked that over with Dana and basically learned that the LPA is what it is. The tweaks to the LPA, if you will, are what we're basically helping them decide on, or a slight adjustment to one of those tweaks might be an option for us to recommend. But a radically different route, again, is just simply not going to get the voice in the end.
Bill, to me, the biggest impact that I think the committee can have surrounds the proximity of the station downtown and sort of how that goes, because that's a new perspective. And like Natasha, when I first saw that as an option, I thought, it was like, oh wow, that's great. It really is getting people there. But David's perspective about Jenna is all of a sudden what ends up happening to the downtown, because you got two things. One, it's the disruption of getting it there to begin with, and then you've got the ongoing impact of what happens once it's there and operating. And having something somewhere close to downtown, whether it's like right on top or not, I think is, from a planning standpoint, it's the heart of what makes Matthews awesome, and so nobody wants to screw that up for sure. And so I'd be curious to know in that particular instance, sort of what, if we could come to a conclusion about that. I think that ends up being probably the biggest impact that we might be able to have, as I said.
Jim.
I think I can save us a lot of time and just go ahead and just tell them we're going to use the modified LPA with the big ditch in the middle, and we'll put the transit station down there in that little ditch. And it might be cool as heck. I don't know. It'll be right there on the edge of the hospital, and we can all go home.
Maybe that's what we come to. I don't know. I hope not. I hope we put more thought into it than that. Tell you what, here we are at 8:40. I do want to kind of tie up the discussion tonight. I think we have some really good some really good suggestions on the board. We obviously need to get to a point where we understand our guiding principles. We need to get to why the LPA was adopted initially, and what guiding principles we're going to move forward with. Again, my take on it at this point is that we need to hear from everybody. Right now, we have 9 people on the call from the task force. So I have a list of emails, a list of phone numbers. Does everybody know how to get in touch with me? So let me say this differently. If you don't know how to get in touch with me, raise your hand. Okay, that's just a lot to me. Okay, I
can get in touch with Jimmy. I know how to do that. How about just send us each other's emails? Is that legal?
Yep. It is. So I'll BCC a spreadsheet that I got from Shanna earlier today of emails and phone numbers of each of the task force members, and that'll at least help the communication. Now, going forward, one of the things that came out in my meeting with Hazen and the mayor last week was that they've received some feedback from the committee from the task force members, and that's all great. But going forward, I think it would really help me to lead this herd of cats if I heard from you directly. And so obviously the miss there was you didn't know how to get in touch with me. We'll fix that tonight. And so if you could let me know your thoughts, if you could let me know where you are in terms of the task force. And Jim, I heard the frustration of maybe we should just save the time. But let's kind of dig under the initial presentation and see where we can take this thing. If you can talk to me first, email, phone call, whatever. So anyway, that's communications number one. We're going to fix that. Ride-alongs, Wyatt, if you could give me an idea of what we think we could accomplish in that ride-along, I think that would help our communication around the task force. So why would Chris or why would Lou join us in the ride-along? What would we learn? What would the conversation take place? And then was it Lynn? You mentioned the show up in town and walk around the town. Who made that suggestion about showing up in town and walking around? Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. I think that's a great idea. I'll, as a part of that communication, I'll put some dates on the calendar when we can meet in various spots in the town and have a talk. And again, I think in order for me to get to that point of wanting to do those in-town walks, I want to get to the point of understanding what do we think we're going to get out of them. So give me a little bit of time on that one. Okay?
I'm going to second Jim Johnson's, Andrew Caroline's idea and add that if CSX is a viable option, that the map that I sent would be a short, easy to do route to Andrew Caroline.
Thank you, Lou.
If anybody didn't get that map, let me know.
Bill?
Carrie.
Hey, speaking of next meeting, since you're not going to be with us, can we talk a minute about an agenda that could be productive and how you want that chaired?
Thank you. That was the next thing I wanted to mention. Go ahead, Carrie. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'd like to have the staff come back with any documentation they could find, but I'd like to see us spend 15 minutes or so talking about goals again to see if we all have the same common goals that we'd expect for this type of activity, at least vetting our own. in an effort to perhaps prioritize the things that we then might want to present to the town commissioners when the committee's done. If they've missed some of these perspectives or objectives, if they have them, great. But if we identify the top 4 or 5 purposes for doing this, then we can almost put our own matrix together as we go through the 3 scenarios and scale and weight them. Which ones of these accomplish them in a scale from 1 to 5? We can be the engineers that these guys want to be and even look at them numerically to say, all right, here are the drawbacks to, 10-3-B, and here's XYZ's problem with this. Here are the benefits of blah, 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 and at least get ourselves a framework for then deciding, do we really want to push the envelope perhaps outside of the 3 scenarios to scenario 4 that Lou just mentioned, or a 5th that is a tweak of the tweak. But I'd like somebody to, if we could spend some time as a group on that at the beginning, even if staff charges those, and then whatever else time we're going to spend, I think we've got to continue to speak about these scenarios. And at that point in time, I'd like you to come back and say to us that it's either 1, 2, or 3, or we still have an open, let's say we have an opportunity to consider some expansion beyond that. If it's 1, 2, and 3, then we should just spend our time there. Like Jim said, I don't want us to spend a lot of engineering time and look at all these other ideas to be disappointed that they're just not physically possible at this stage.
That's fair. All right. All right. So my takeaways tonight are both we want to make sure that we understand how to get in touch with each other, and most notably you all in touch with me to further this communication. Shana, if you can make note on the agenda that we really want to focus on September 2nd on goals. Let's talk about leadership of this committee. So right now, we're not a committee, we're a task force. Right now, I'm the chairman. We don't have an assistant chair or a substitute chair, if there's such a thing. Would somebody like to offer to lead our next conversation on September 2nd? And again, the agenda will be basically negotiated between me and this vice chair, if you will, and Dana, and circulated by Shana ahead of time. And then the meeting, the meeting progress, of course, will be something that you can drive in my absence.
Can I nominate someone?
Please.
That's not my fault. I nominate Carrie.
So moved.
Yeah, good.
I'll second that, third that.
4th.
Carrie, would you be willing to carry the torch?
You're muted.
You're muted.
It's muted.
No, I wasn't. You read my lips.
Speechless.
No, I have no problem with that. I'd be happy to. No problem.
Thank you, Carrie. Great.
And just, I want to add something real quick. I think with the emails and Shana and our other folks who might know this better than I think we need to be careful about how many people we email at one time, because I think that's considered a quorum too. Mm-hmm. So I think that also needs to stay under a certain amount of people. I might be incorrect about that. So
No,
please.
that's correct. You need to keep your emails under 7, your email chains, and do note that any emails you send are public record and can be requested as public record. So your computers will be looked at for that. So your emails, just heads up.
Shana, is there a way you can send that information out to us individually?
Absolutely. I'll send it to you.
Let's just do it that way.
I mean, if you want to pass everything through me, then my emails would be subject to, and that's fine. I don't mind doing that. That's up to you. I think I gave Mr. Abernathy that option too. So that's why I've been sending his email, so that anything he sends to the group goes through me. And that way there's no open meeting or all public input would come, or any public, whatever would go through me.
That's fair. I'm okay with that. Obviously, if it's less than 7 people on the on email, if you send it directly to me, I'm fine with that too. But Shana's our gatekeeper. I really like that option.
If she has a spreadsheet, then the spreadsheet's just a document. It can come to each of us individually and doesn't have to include everyone.
The way that Shana does it is that she BCCs everybody, blind copies, and that way we're not an official public meeting, an open meeting, and that works. That is within the rules. And as you reply back to Shana, I guess, do you want people to just note, please send this on to the committee, or how would we know whether or not you're going to send it on?
You can do that. I send everything on. If anybody sends in anything to me, I send it on. I'm not going to hold on to it. Again, it's public record and it's open meeting laws. That's just what we're trying to protect. It's state statute.
Got it.
So, I mean, anything you ask me to send on, you're going to be copied on it. So you're going to see that I sent it. But again, that's your choice. That just keeps all the open record stuff on me. So if there is a records request, it's my system that gets searched and not all of y'all's systems.
I like that idea. Okay, any questions about the emails, communication, and next meeting leadership?
I see Mr. Abernathy has his hand up.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Need to lower it.
Oh, never mind. I'm muting again.
He's scratching.
Chris, we haven't heard from you much today. How you doing?
I'm just fine. Thanks, Bill. No, I agree. I think we need more feedback and guidance from where we need to go before we can make a decision.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, unless anybody want to give any parting thoughts? Okay. Thanks, everybody, for your time tonight. I really appreciate your contribution, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Bill, very much.
Thank you.